So today we're going to talk about the last team that got eliminated in the first round of the playoffs, and I believe after this we'll start talking about teams that got eliminated in the conference semifinal, the conference final, and eventually going to MLS Cup. Talk about the loser, the Portland Timbers, and the winner, NYCFC. And I believe we have 8 more episodes after when I talk about the Seattle Sounders in this moving forward series, which, by the way, they were definitely on the wrong end of the biggest upset of this season playoff, and arguably one of the biggest upset in MLS playoff history. Like, nobody thought that the Seattle Sounders was going to get eliminated in the first round. Heck, this is actually history with the fact that this is the first time ever the Sounders actually didn't get past the first round. And even though I know they have also suffered some early playoff exit before, this is the earliest that they, of course, have suffered. And it just kind of shows you a great example of the fact that, the beauty of the playoffs nowadays, with it being kind of a one-off kind of occasion, is that if you don't perform at your best, or if you are just have a game where your finishing isn't at its best, you could potentially get eliminated. And the Sounders kind of found that the hard way against RSL in that game. But overall, it's still a great regular season, as they finished with a 17-9-8 record and finished with 60 points. They scored 53 goals this season, only allowed 33 goals, which not only is the best in the Western Conference, but it's actually tied with both the Red Bulls and Nashville SC as the best defensive record in the league. And their goal differential is plus 20, which is the best in the Western Conference, and I believe third in terms of overall, in terms of the best goal differential. And as it is always the case, they finished second in the Western Conference. Like, I've said before, life, death, taxes, and the Sounders finished second in the Western Conference. And I feel like next year, when I do make my prediction in terms of the table, you probably know who I'm going to pick to finish second in the Western Conference. Like, I'm just at this point thinking that, the Sounders, they're just a team that have always showed that great consistency of finishing second in the Western Conference. That, I think next year, if they don't finish second, it will be a little bit of a surprise. Now, I mean, if they do finish top of the West, then I think Sounders fans are going to be happy. But anything below that, I think will be a bit of a surprise, just like what happened in the playoffs this season. As I mentioned, they got eliminated in the first round in the game against RSL. Now, the top goal scorer for this team, unsurprisingly, Raul Ruidiaz with 17 goals, and I believe he was third in the Golden Boot standing, followed by Fredy Montero with 7 goals, Cristian Roldan with 6 goals, Jimmy Madrona with 4 goals, and João Paulo finished with 3 goals to round up the top goal scorer for the Sounders team. Top assist leader, you got João Paulo with 11 assists this season for the Sounders to lead the team, followed by Fredy Montero with 6 assists, Cristian Roldan with 6 assists, Will Broom with 4 assists, and Brad Smith with 4 assists. And no name that is missing in terms of the top assist leader is Nico Lodeiro. And again, Lodeiro, he was out for majority of the season, didn't really kind of come back until in the latter part of the season. So that's kind of the reason why he wasn't on the top assist leader, because I'm pretty sure every single year for the past couple of season, Lodeiro has always been on the top assist leader chart, and usually are number one in terms of that category. So what went right for this Seattle Sounders team? Now, despite the disappointment that they suffer in the playoffs this season, it was kind of a very typical Seattle Sounders kind of season, where they were doing very well in the regular season, and especially in the first half of the season. Like, this team was absolutely unplayable in the first half of the season. Like, when you're playing against the Sounders in the first half of the season, you're lucky to even get a draw against them, because they were playing some of the best kind of soccer that I've ever seen the Sounders had play, and that incredible run that they got off to the start of the season, 13 game unbeaten, and haven't even given up an open goal until the month of June. I mean, it was just absolutely incredible to see the Sounders team that was really just kind of running away with the league. And we were even thinking about how, looks like they could not only challenge New England for the Supporters Shield standings, but are they going to try to challenge LAFC in terms of the most points ever in the regular season? And as I mentioned, with the way that they also are unplayable with the defense, I mean, it was just an absolute rock solid. I mean, I will say that the defense did kind of start to show a little bit cracks in the latter part of the season, but believe me, in the first half of the season, this defense was untouchable. Like, you simply cannot able to break down this defense, and that, as I mentioned, with the way that they didn't even give up an open goal until June. Like, that is just got to be a record of the longest to start the season without giving up an open goal. And then, of course, the last thing the Sounders team is that even with injuries kind of was mounting, the depth really shines through for this team. I mean, that was kind of one of the questions that this team has, whether or not if the depth is going to be good enough. And for the majority of the year, it was actually pretty good. Like, even when they were missing some of those key players. And you got to also remember, this is a team that did not have Lodeiro and Morris for majority of the year, and yet the people that the players that stepped up for those guys that is suffering from injury really kind of shines through. Though I will say this is that, as much as they did a good job in terms of dealing with injuries that was happening throughout the season, it kind of eventually catch up to them. I mean, this team really was crippled with injury throughout the season, and the old saying, you can only deal with injuries and have so many guys out until it finally started to catch up to them. And unfortunately for the Sounders, it kind of caught up to them in the worst time. Like, it caught up to them in the latter part of the season, and that was kind of one of the things that went wrong for this team. It's also hard to believe, but the fact that I actually go back to look at the regular season, and in the last couple of games, the Sounders actually went on a winless run coming into the playoffs, and that is kind of something that surprised me a little bit, even with the injuries that they had to battle through. But I don't think anybody was talking about that winless run and how, when you're a team that comes into the playoffs cold, it's could potentially create some big issue. But I guess the reason why nobody talks about it is because, well, the Sounders are going to figure it out. Like, when they're in the playoffs, also known as Schmitz at the time, he's going to figure it out, and it just feels like they weren't able to figure it out in the playoffs, which is where we'll get to the third part of what went wrong for them. The other thing that went wrong for them, which, well, there really isn't a lot that went wrong for them in terms of MLS, so I kind of had to go into some of the other competition that they in, which was in the League Cup, and boy, they had a big opportunity to make some history and become the first MLS team to win the League Cup. And I know the League Cup, I said before how it's kind of like an afterthought tournament, but it's still a tournament. Like, it's still some silverware that you can win by the end of the year, and for a team like the Seattle Sounders, pretty much winning silverware every single year, we felt that was going to be a trophy that they were going to win. Like, yes, they had a tough opponent against Lyon in the final, but this team was 1-0 up against Lyon in the final, and then they just collapsed in the latter part of the game, giving up 2 goals in the last 15 minutes, and yeah, they'll feel like that was a huge missed opportunity for them to not only win some silverware, but also make some history of becoming the first MLS team in the League Cup and solidify another example of the fact that MLS is starting to catch up in terms of the gap between them and Liga MX. And then, of course, the last thing that went wrong, I talked about the playoffs, how, yeah, they chose the worst game to have problem in terms of their finishing to kind of go blank. Like, they had, I remember, 21 shots in this game, which it sounds a lot when you realize that the shots on goal wasn't actually that much. They actually only had 3 shots on goal out of the 21 shots that they had, and obviously we also remembered how that was the infamous game where they gave up 0 shots in the entire game to RSL, and yet they still lost in a PK shootout. But as much as I know they'll be very frustrated about that, and they feel like it's incredibly cruel, they really have no one to blame for themselves with the way that, when you put up that many shots, but you're not putting shots on target and create some good chances, it really doesn't matter how the stats, of course, were showing. That was kind of the problem that they had in the game, where no matter who it was, the Sounders just could not able to find a way to get past RSL. Like, I just had a feeling in that game, if they would have scored 1 goal against RSL, they would have run away that game. Like, that was a game where they were just in complete dominance, and they just could not solve the riddle of David Ochoa, and also just could not be able to find ways to create good chances. So moving forward for the Sounders team, now I know last season was disappointing with the way that they suffer a playoff exit, and it's kind of a new feeling, and that Sounders fan, well, I wouldn't say a new feeling because they did had some early playoff exit early, as I mentioned, but it's definitely a new feeling, the fact that they were heavy favorites, and this is really the first time that they actually got knocked out by a team that they didn't expect to lose in the playoffs for a while now. But I still expect this to be a good team. I mean, this team of course is going to get Jordan Morris back healthy next season. They're going to also have Nico Lodeiro though he is starting to age a little bit. I think he's going to come back as stronger and start to look like the Nico Lodeiro that we know from his time with the Sounders. But the big question for the Sounders this offseason is the Ruidíaz situation. And, you know, the Ruidíaz situation, I remember back when the playoffs were still going on, and, you know, the Sounders, of course, was in probably the earliest offseason in their club history. There was a lot of talks about Ruidíaz and how, you know, there could be a chance that he's not coming back to the Seattle Sounders. And there's even been rumors of the fact that it seems like Ruidíaz is kind of getting the Ozzie Alonso treatment of how, you know, Ozzie Alonso was pissed off about the Sounders front office, and it just gets to a point where he even decided to leave for another MLS club. And it seems like this is the same case happening to Ruidíaz. And, you know, there's been rumors of him going back to Liga MX. There's even some teams that maybe even think about trying to get Ruidíaz. But either way, they got to figure out this situation. Like, you know, losing Ozzie Alonso, that was definitely tough for them. But I think this is going to be even tougher, because this is the guy that is literally the leading goal scorer of this team. And, you know, to lose him next season, I mean, it won't just completely decimate the Sounders attack. I mean, they still have some good option going forward. But to not have your main goal scorer next season, yeah, it's going to be a huge blow in terms of the Sounders' chances to once again be an MLS Cup contender. And we'll see how this situation is going to handle. I mean, again, ever since there was those talk of him potentially leaving the Sounders, everything has gone quiet in terms of this saga. There hasn't been a lot of news. I mean, I did read an article on the Sounders Sports Nation kind of fan page and talk about the situation with Ruidíaz, and even they cannot figure out what's going on. Like, you know, we're actually only about a month and a half away from the start of the season, and just a couple of weeks before preseason started, and they still have not signed the extension for Raul Ruidíaz. So there could be a case where he's not going to come back for this Sounders. And again, I just think that this is a really surprising move. Like, I did not expect that this was going to be the case, even though I know his contract was expiring this season. I thought they were just going to quickly extend him and everything would go well. But that being said, you know, in terms of the other thing that moving forward for them, well, you know, you're wondering, well, if Ruidíaz does left, then who exactly is going to play that number 9 role, and are they actually looking for a number 9 position? Well, it doesn't seem like that is the case. And in fact, you know, besides the whole Rusnak rumor of the fact that it seems like he is getting close to join the Seattle Sounders, you know, the Sounders haven't been rumored with any signings lately, which I think Sounders fans are used to, because, you know, knowing Garth Lagerwey, he's a guy that tends to not make his signings during the winter transfer window. He always is the guy that look in the summertime, and repeatedly have shown that he has found some hidden gem in the summer transfer window to transfer this team to be an MLS Cup contender. So I'm not going to be worried that they have a quiet winter for the Sounders. But, you know, if they do get Rusnak, you just wonder, you know, he's not a number 9, so I'm assuming they're not going to push him in terms of that spot. And it's also kind of interesting the fact that they signed another number 10, and is this maybe just kind of just a replacement for Lodeiro in case if Lodeiro go down with injury, or maybe Lodeiro shows his age a little bit. But it could also be a sign that maybe Brian Schmetzer is trying to maybe be change up in terms of the formation, and that maybe we'll see a player for the Sounders attack that you did not expect him to be up there in the number 9 position, but he ends up to be that spot. So it's going to be interesting to see how, you know, I would say that when we wait till summer transfer window, we'll see what the Sounders are going to do in case if Ruidíaz does leave, and whether they're going to sign a number 9 in terms of that spot. Because once Ruidíaz leave, I think that opens a DP slot, since the Sounders have all 3 of their DP slot occupied. And it's also understandable why they haven't been rumored with some big signings, because they just have no room to make a big signing with all those DP slot being filled. And then the last thing moving forward for this team is, you know, I think they're going to bring back some depth piece. So guys like Alex Rodon, Kellen Rowe, and Will Bruin, they're definitely talking to them in terms of making a contract extension, and I won't be surprised if it could be announced in these upcoming days, or even in these upcoming weeks. I mean, I know the depth was one of the problem. Well, I wouldn't say it was a problem on the defensive in the midfielder end, but it was definitely a problem on the attacking and especially in the latter part of the season. So I think maybe they'll try to bring some of these guys back that they kind of declined the contract option in after when they announced the end of the season roster move, or the fact that they just go in around MLS and hope to kind of maybe get some depth players in the MLS market and make some TAM signing in terms of the depth chart. But other than that, when you look at the Sounders team, again, I will never doubt the Sounders, even if they have a quiet transfer window or maybe there's like big question how the team is going to be heading into the upcoming season. I will never doubt that this team is not going to be good. Like, this team will be good next season. This team, I expect, is going to be a team that can compete for the Western Conference crown again and again. They're going to try to, and I think this year also is going to be interesting, the fact that this is really kind of the first season in a while that they come off of a very disappointing playoff run, and it's going to be interesting to see how they will respond, and maybe they'll be extra motivated with the way that after that heartbreaking first round exit, that they're definitely more motivated to try to get themselves back to MLS Cup. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're a Sounders fan, what went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team is going to look. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.